Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Cantaloupe Cayenne Sorbet. That's right, when I saw this flavor being featured by one of San Francisco's top ice cream makers, I of course assumed they were huge fans of the show and this was some kind of homage. Well, as it turns out, they had never heard of me and had no idea what I was talking about. But regardless, it sounded amazing, so I decided to find the recipe, and it actually came out better than it sounded. This really was incredible. So I'm very excited to share it with you, and we're going to get started by prepping our cantaloupe. And all that means is we're going to cut it in half, and of course scoop out the seeds, and then we'll simply use a spoon to scoop out that gorgeous sweet orange flesh. And ideally what we want to do here is scoop this into a bowl set on top of a scale, because what we're going to need for this is exactly 1.5 pounds of cantaloupe. And I do realize we're usually not that big on exact measurements, but if we want to get a really nice texture, we have to make sure the ratio between the fruit and the sugar is correct. So like I said, we're going to scoop out exactly 1.5 pounds. Actually, you know what? Let's make that exactly 1.5 pounds plus 3/8. And then once our fruit has been successfully scooped and weighed, we'll go ahead and add that to a blender. And for whatever reason, if you don't have a scale, if we smush this down in the blender, you can see it's about 4.5 cups of cantaloupe. But either way, once that's in the blender, we can continue on with the rest of the ingredients. The first of which would be some white sugar. And by the way, I have a prediction. Someone will leave the comment, that's a lot of sugar, which is of course so dumb. But anyway, after we add that's a lot of sugar, we'll add the juice of 1 lime, freshly squeezed of course. So far nothing too unusual with these ingredients, but that's about to change. Because next up we're going to add a little splash of seasoned rice vinegar, which may seem a little strange for a sorbet, but it totally works, so put it in. And then after that, believe it or not, we're also going to add a couple tablespoons of vodka, which if I'm not mistaken is an old Alton Brown trick. And I will attempt to explain what that does on the blog post. But I want to be clear, it's not to catch a buzz. There's not really enough for that. It's for the texture. And then last but not least, the co-star of the show, some cayenne. And as usual, the exact amount's going to be up to you. You are, of course, the Stevie Ray of your sorbet. So this really could range anywhere from a small pinch to the 1/4 teaspoon you see me adding here. So you really should add some, otherwise you're going to have to change the name of the recipe. But anyway, once we have all our ingredients in the blender, we will go ahead and blend this on the highest speed to completely liquefy it. So give it a minute or two. We really do want it as smooth as mechanically possible. And if everything's gone according to plan when you're done, your mixture should look something like this. And I guess you could taste it if you want, but you're really not going to get the full effect until it's frozen. And then once our base is set, of course, we have to turn this into sorbet using one of these. My handy dandy small but very effective ice cream maker. So we'll go ahead and pour our sorbet base in and proceed, as they say, according to manufacturer's directions. And while these machines are fairly inexpensive, and you really should get one, there's like 1,000 different hacks posted online for how to make ice cream without a machine. So check those out. There really are a lot of alternatives that work quite well. And by the way, as this is spinning, try not to eat it all by tasting it every 2 seconds. Okay, I'm only doing this so you can see how the texture's changing as it spins. For scientific reasons. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and let that churn until it basically turns from a liquid into sort of a slushy sorbet. Okay, these machines are never going to freeze your ice cream or sorbet completely solid. Otherwise, you'll probably break your machine. Okay, once it gets to this stage, you're pretty much done. And you'll actually hear the motor of the machine start to labor. So what we'll do is stop, and we'll take a spatula, and we'll quickly scrape down that white paddle thing, which probably has an actual name. Everything does. But anyway, we will clean that off, and kind of smooth out that surface a little. And then all we need to do is cover this in plastic and pop it in the freezer until it's firm. Which, because I had a video to finish, I didn't exactly do. So I popped it in there for a while, but the mixture was still a little soft. Which really was not a problem, except I did have to do a little cleanup for the pictures. So do as I say, and not as I did. Let yours freeze until it's firm, you'll have a better texture. But having said that, even a little bit soft, this was incredible. I mean, the first thing you get is that beautiful fresh sweet cantaloupe, which is just beautifully enhanced by the tanginess from the vinegar and the lime juice. And then right at the end, as you're swallowing that awesomeness, the heat kicks in. Oh, the heat. That little bit, or more than a little bit of spiciness the cayenne provides, makes this one of the most addictive sorbets I've ever had. And yes, in case you were wondering, this will work beautifully on a cone. In fact, if you're keeping score at home, I think it works better on the cone. Because not only does that crunch provide a beautiful textural contrast, that sweetness from the sugar cone really balances the spiciness beautifully. This really was fantastic, and as you know, I don't throw that term around loosely. But anyway, that's it, Cantaloupe Cayenne Sorbet. Not only is this an amazing summer treat, it's also a bit historic, since I don't think we've ever done a video that had the word cayenne in the title. I know, I can't believe it either. So for that reason and many, many more, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.